The following is a presentation of iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to those of you watching on iRacing Live, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live tonight from New Hampshire Motor Speedway in Loudon, New Hampshire. I am James Pike, joined tonight in the booth and in the production trailer that he decided to move up here because he's just too lazy and doesn't want to walk all that far between his double duties tonight. Cisco Scaramuzza, lovely and talented, bringing you all the shots of all these cars going around this Magic Mile and the talents of his voice to LSRTV once again. Cisco, this is a flat track in the flattest sense of all the flats in the flats. I mean, you could say no banking, but I don't even think that begins to describe how much of a pancake New Hampshire is.
New Hampshire is one of very few circuits that we see in oval racing where it was basically designed for cars that have downforce. Now, if you're privy to how stock cars work, you'll know that one of the keys to them is they don't have a whole lot of downforce, or at least not before the 1990s or such in the case of that. So when we come to a track like a New Hampshire, I equate it to something like a Milwaukee Mile, or even sometimes maybe some characteristics to more of a Michigan. Maybe not as much banking, but as a result, these guys who are gonna be in these 3,400-pound stock cars, they don't have a giant wing on the back of these cars to be able to push them into the corner. They don't have a front wing to be able to help them grip through the corner. They're gonna have to do it with that throttle pedal, maybe a little bit of shifting tonight. These cars, from what I understood and heard during practice today, these guys not having a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of work to keep those cars on track tonight.
I think you also have to watch throttle control here more than anything else. It's a track that is very deceptive in that sense. You want to be able to just completely mash the gas pedal on corner exit and go down these straightaways, but because you don't really have any banking there underneath the car to support you, it's very easy to overdrive the car on corner exit and get it loose off the rear end, or sometimes spin yourself out on turn 2 or turn 4.
Oh yeah, I could tell you how many times I've done that myself in the sim, where I've just ended up flooring it or something like that to get out of the wreck. Next thing I know, I end up in the grass in turn 3, and it's not a lot of fun. And if you can ask Dale Jarrett what happens when you lose it off turn 4 here, he could tell you it's not a lot of fun, because that was, of course, the crash that made them throw out the race back to the line caution, or the caution rule for that in NASCAR. And as a result, that came here at New Hampshire. And this track also very narrow. That's something we're going to talk a lot about. Not to mention the fact it's a one groove racetrack for the most part, James. But we take a look at the points. Let's stop talking about the track for a moment. Let's look at points, because as it sits right now, it's a very odd place in the cut line, because we've had this battle going on the cut line for a while, and you look at, that's the top 16 who are in right now. One thing to note, Bruce Ackerman sits in 9th right now on indefinite suspension. We don't know if that'll be raised before or after the chase, or what's going to happen with that, Pike, but either way, it stands to reason that when we take a look at the points cut line, everything close there, we talk about the guy tied with him, Lionel Kalisto, tied with Ross Cato on that points line. Assuming Ackerman does not make it into the chase, then you have Shane Ewing, the first guy outside the cut line, by 4 points. Then a little bit of a gap back to Barrow and Coop. So that battle, I think we're really going to see, is going to be between DeBarro, Coop, and even throw Doug Roth, and that AJ Browning's a little bit far off. Don't know if we're going to see him, but either way, that's, I think, where we're going to see this points battle.
Yeah, I think especially coming into August, you want to be within a race's worth of points into that battle for the last spot in the playoffs in order to really have any sort of shout at it. I think the difference this year, though, is that Roth doesn't have the opportunity to win at a super speedway like he was able to do last year to get into the playoffs. So might be a little bit trickier this time around to see him get in, but for Coop and DeBarro especially, I think is the name that jumps out in that bunch because he's the one who's shown many glimpses of speed, has been there at some of the ends of these races, but just hasn't had the chance to put a full race together and come up with a win. But there's no doubt he's got the pace to do it. The question is, can he get lucky enough and I guess stay cool enough in a sense to bring it on home and get the victory?
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And qualifying winding down here, we're going to send it down to the grid. And James, let's find out who's got on pole tonight.
How about, let's see, a little dramatic pause there just to be safe, but it's Colson Bermudez who comes away with the pole this evening with a 29.387. Then Daniel Eberhardt starting in second. Dylan Jones, third. Mitch Rollo back here for the second week in a row. Will start fourth. David Washington begins tonight from the fifth position. Anthony DeBarro starts from sixth. We just talked about him in pre-race. David Comstock already in the playoffs with a few wins this season. Will start seventh. Brandon Bowie in the 44 begins from eighth. And then Trevor Rapolo and Shane Ewing to round out your top 10 to start tonight at New Hampshire.
And right behind him, a little bit of an interesting row. Nathan Little has been trying to make up every single point he can to get into this chase. And then Jonathan Cadell making his return to RSR. He's been back and forth a little bit. Great to see the 65 back on track in 12th. 13th going to go to Corey A. Wolf. 14th going to go to Sean Casto. And Christopher Hurlow also back in the 87 again. Superman, he's running 15th. 16th going to go to Nick Silver. 17th to Mike Kelly. 18th going to go to Corbin Hemstreet. 19th to our own Gabe Wood. And 20th going to go to the aforementioned Doug Roth.
Longtime RSR veteran Dwayne Vincent starts from 21st tonight. Kyle Barnes will take the wheel from the 22nd spot. Inside of row 12 will be the 6th of Austin Coop, also near that cut line for the playoffs. Andrew Farinars has got a victory tonight running the Chef Andy's Lobster Rolls colors. Will start 24th. Randy Yoakum begins tonight from 25th. Ross Cato rolls off from the 26th position. 27th is where you'll find Shawn Boundy in that Sprite 34 Chevrolet SS. Gio Bamonti will begin from 28th. Joseph LaPlaca starts from the 29th position, and then Lionel Calisto, first car to not take a time, will go from 30th. Thomas Lattimore, Andrew Bird, John Abbott, and Doug Wyatt starting at 31st through 34th, not taking times respectively. And as we close up the starting grid, time to take a look at the track facts. We mentioned that this place is flat. How flat, you say? 2 degrees to 7 degrees of banking through the turns. It's progressive and gets higher as you go up towards the wall, and a single degree on the front straight and the max straight here at the Magic Mile, which is actually a mile and 58 1/1000ths around if we are to be technical. So when you go for the 135 laps that we will go for tonight, you will complete 142.8 miles when you get back to the start-finish line for the final time. A reminder now, we're down to 8 races left before our playoffs begin in September at Chicagoland Speedway. Glad to have you with us tonight here on LSRTV for another broadcast of RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking Action. Colson Bermudez will lead the field off of turn 4 for the first time to get the green flag as we go underway for the Magic Mile, and a good jump for the 14 car, maybe 2 to 3 car lengths here as they go into turn 1 for the first time. Then you've got Daniel Eberhardt trying to drive above Dylan Jones to go get the second spot. We'll try and get a run off the corner. They'll go 2 by 2 for the most part as they come down the back straightaway for the first time.
Yeah, down into turn 3, they go side by side. A couple Aegis drivers there going at it. You see the 90, you see the 11. Also, Dave Washington throwing that mix. And the returning Mitch Rollo did not have the run he wanted 1 week ago. He's making it work, though. New Hampshire, a very, very good track for Mitch in the past, not only in this series, but also on the sim. Mitch Rollo trying to do everything he can. Stuck on that outside groove, not going to have a lot of luck up there as they come out of turn 2. Maybe trying to see if he can get the outside groove to work as Daniel Eberhardt gets very loose. And they're still side by side as they end the 3.
Made that pretty easy for Jones and for Rollo to go ahead and clear Eberhardt there. And White Chef Andy's Lobster Rolls machine, he'll go back and try and fight there with, I believe, Anthony DeBarro. Yes, who's making his way up through the field quickly. Started 6th now up to the 5th spot. Now trying to work on Dylan Jones for the 4th position on the outside. Got a good run off the corner there. Might have something to say coming into turn 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting to see, we talked about it all year, James. Aegis's dominance Aegis dominant in the RSR Full Throttle Cup Series. I got to figure out my words tonight. But either way, this is what we saw 1 year ago with Boomtown taking it to Aegis. Well, looks like we got the flashback going, because I see the 96 and the 99. They're trying to do everything they can up there to stick it to Aegis. And right now, doing a decent job. They've split up Daniel Eberhardt between Jones and Washington. But meanwhile, Colson Bermudez has basically just driven away from everyone. That battle early on allowed him to pull out a huge gap on the field.
Try and take a moment here to let the lobster pinch kind of fade away from Cisco's tongue, because clearly he's having a little bit of trouble with his words already. But yeah, Bermudez is already out in front by a solid second over Eberhardt, who has managed to take control of that second spot by about half a second over Mitch Rollo, and then Jones, and then you've got Tabarro and Washington fighting for position. Those two have kind of been sitting in 5th and 6th all day, and then maybe another car link back to Brandon Bowie and another one back to Comstock there in 8th, and then there's a bit of a gap, maybe a little bit of a second and change back to Shane Ewing, but he's got, looks like, Trevor Rapallo, Nathan Little, Jonathan Cadell, Chris Hurlow, all right there ready, waiting to make something happen.
And Shane Ewing in a very good position to gain some points tonight, James. And he by no means is safe right now coming into tonight. He needs to have a couple good solid runs to make sure that he's going to be in this chase picture if he has even a shot, because he's 4 points out of that cut line tonight. And, well, that's no guarantee that you're going to make it in. He's shown a lot of consistency. I've been very impressed with that Rayovac Ford Fusion in the past, especially in the last recent weeks, because he's been able to stay up front and has learned a lot this year. Definitely changed from the driver we saw in that 32 1 year ago. And he just needs to have another good solid run at New Hampshire tonight, and I think he might have a shot at this.
Speaking of change, a change per position a little bit further up the field for you. Dylan Jones was able to get around Mitch Rollo. I think Rollo might have overdriven turn 1 and 2 that last time around, because he went really high up off the groove, and that allowed Jones to get around him. So move Jones up to the 3rd position, Rollo back to 4th, and then you've got his teammate from Boomtown Sim Racing, Anthony Tabarro, right there with David Washington hot on his heels. That little trio of cars might be your best battle pack here at the front of the field.
Yeah, doing an excellent job as Dave Washington, doing the usual Dave Washington tactic of sitting on the bumper of someone, seeing if they can overdrive, he can get them to overdrive the corner, and Dave's been known very much to do that. Now going to take a look to the inside, and it's going to work. He's going to get there, and Tabarro stuck up on that second lane. If he can get the drive off, he may be able to do something. Survey says got a little bit loose off the corner, and Dave's actually going to nudge him a little bit. See, wasn't quite clear on that one. He'll lose out that position, at least that time, as they head into turn 3.
Everybody up in that 3rd groove. That's where you want to be, right on the bottom. It's just really, really hard to get any sort of drive off the corners, because, as we've talked about already in this broadcast, there is zero banking to support you. So everybody sliding up, that's where the greater banking is, and you at least have a little bit to work with. And kind of makes it a one-lane racetrack, as you said earlier, Cisco. It very much will be about intimidating, and I think more often than not just trying to sit behind someone and force them to make a mistake. But, you know, I would not be surprised if we saw the bumper come out and the chrome horn be used a few times over the course of this race.
No, that's absolutely the case, and I look back to another battle pack we have right now. Dwayne Vincent is in it, Corey Wolf, Chris Hurlow, this kind of group of cars here. Kind of about 9th on back. Ewing is the head of it right now. Rapallo is just kind of following in the footsteps here. And you see a long train of cars. I'd say it goes all the way back to Mike Kelly in the number 2. That's a huge group. Kind of 2 groups almost now, because Kyle Barnes is kind of losing the back end of the Camry at Jonathan Cadell. So I think for Kyle here, he's starting to lose that back, and it's almost starting to look like a plate track out there, James.
A little bit. And once upon a time, it was a plate track in the fall of 2000 after the rash of unfortunate deaths that NASCAR had seen at New Hampshire. They actually did run a race here with restrictor plates. Jeff Burton led all 300 laps that day, won from the pole, and got another victory at a track that he really made his own, especially in his years with Roush Racing in that X-Side number 99 Ford Thunderbird / Taurus, if we want to get a history lesson in for today. So you are right, though. Does look like Barnes is losing the rear end of Cadell a bit. Also see a lot of front end damage on Mike Kelly's machine. So would be curious to see what goes on with that and where all that came from. In the meantime, though, back up towards the front of the field, Anthony DeBarro now trying to hold off David Washington once more, still in front of the 98, but boy, there has been absolutely no space between the rear bumper of the 99 and the front bumper of the 98 for about 5 laps or 6 laps now, and Comstock looks like he might be able to get the slide job completed on Bowie as they go into turn 1 and come out of turn 2, so move Comstock up to the 7th position.
And Comstock and Washington, I think, are going to have similar driving approaches to tonight. This is, I like to call it the Dave Washington style of driving because this is what he does best. He will, even if he's faster than a guy, he'll sit behind, save his stuff, wait for that guy to make a mistake. He could try and shoot to the inside, maybe try and take that position, but Dave doesn't like to do that. Dave likes to be nice and patient, especially on these flatter tracks. Dave likes to just sit back, wait for the guy to make a mistake, get a little bit loose, and be able to take that opportunity to pass you. And I've been victim to it in the past in my short driving career, and I know Dave and Anthony is well aware of what Dave is doing right now. The biggest thing for the 99, I think, is just don't look in that mirror right now, James.
And I think for the 98, it's understand that you have a lot of race left to go. Only working lap 16 here of 135, and I don't think it will concern David Washington all that much that Colson Bermudez is gone from the front of this field. Out ahead of Dylan Jones by almost 2 seconds. Everhart there, maybe 3 or 4 car lengths back of the 11 machine, and Washington kind of sitting there in that pack that stretches from Rollo all the way back to Bowie in 8th. But I think if you're the 98 with the experience that you have, you're not really worried about what's going on in front of you at this point. You just want to be there at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Caution going to come out first time tonight. And it looks like possible issues with the 33 at Douglas Wyatt. We'll take a look at the replay and see what we can see from that. But it looked like problems with Douglas Wyatt, and looks like turn 2 going to be what catches that driver out here as we take a look at the replay. Overhead shot survey says 33 got tight coming out of the corner into the outside retaining wall, and that's all she wrote for the 33. Stationary on track, towed it back to pit road, but wasn't enough. You saw the leader, the 14 of Bermudez, drive by him, and that's what's going to trigger the caution stop car on track. And as a result, first yellow underway here from Loudon, and this is probably going to help out those guys who are about, let's say 2 seconds off the lead. It was looking like Lewis Hamilton out there, James.
Lewis put himself a performance in at home in the British Grand Prix this weekend, didn't he, Cisco? So I can't disagree with you on that. I'll be interested to see who takes tires here. And I think it's also important to note as we go through the night and other drivers inevitably get into trouble the same way Douglas Wyatt did, that because this track is so flat, it makes those hits you have on the outside retaining wall a little bit worse, especially if you kind of go into them with the side of the car as opposed to the front end. You're going to pick up a little bit more damage here than you would at other places because there's nothing really to stop you in terms of banking. You're just going to go straight off into the fence. So probably more suspension damage on that 33 machine than we think would normally be there just by virtue of that fact alone. In the meantime, though, everybody down for 4 tires and fuel. Let's see who gambles, see if we see any pit strategy used here to get somebody out in front with track position.
I would not want to do it with 2 tires personally. I think that's not a risk I'm willing to take, and no one else is. No 2 tires through the first 16, and the biggest change you saw there, Anthony DeBarro, terrible stop on pit road, dropped a bunch of spots. He's in 8th leaving pit road. Dave Washington gains a stop, Brandon Bowie gains a stop. And I'm looking through the field. Yeah, pretty much no one took 2 tires. I think every single person in the field took 4. The only other big loss I can see, Mike Kelly lost a bunch of spots, as did Gabe Wood. Everyone else pretty stagnant from where they came down pit road, James. So if they're going to try and play a strategy card, this wouldn't be the track I'd want to do it, and I don't think this early either.
Yeah, because it just doesn't really work. We saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. slip from 1st to 18th on the final restart yesterday in the Real Life Cup race because he stayed out and didn't take tires, and it just ends up burning you here. It's really, really hard to make track position work unless you're working with maybe a 2 or 3, 5 lap run at best. You're going to lose spots if you're on older tires compared to the rest of the field no matter what. It's just a question of how much you want to lose in this case. Also figure that with I don't know about Good or Wood. I haven't seen anything on his car, but Kelly, I would presume, lost a lot of spots fixing up the damage on the front of the machine, which means that it was just DeBarro, I think, who's in the camp of having a poor pit stop. Wondering if he might have overshot or undershot his box coming out of pit road. But at the front of the field, still Colson Bermudez had a lot of speed last week in Kentucky, and that hasn't changed again here. He's pretty quick in that Oakley Ford Fusion through the first 20 laps of this race.
Yeah, and
coming 2-3 car lengths over Jones. Was solo clear on the exit of turn 2, but got a little bit loose off corner exit, so that allowed the 96 to stay alongside, and it might end up being Rollo's position when they come back down across the front straightaway.
And those two going to go side by side for a moment. Everhart looking to the inside of Rollo's. They head into turn 2.
Hearing now that Austin Coop might have been involved in the 6 machine. We'll see if we can get a little bit more information for you here in a moment. This 6 car has already claimed responsibility for how he had a chance to make up points, but didn't need to lose to Dylan Jones, David Washington. Now everybody just came down that last time for tires, so they all are good to go on their rubber, and we'll look to get another restart here in a moment. Tonight, Gabe Wood of the 09 is right there behind Cadell in the 17th position. Nathan Little sitting in 18th behind the lap car of Nick Silver, who currently sits in 24th. And then you've got Doug Roth right there and Corey Wolf around this pack. He sits in 20th. So pretty big group of cars there, 5, 6, 7 machines as the leaders start trying to work their way around traffic. And Silver dips underneath Wood, and Ross Cato is there as well as they start to catch up on some of these drivers. Cadell trying to work his way underneath Cato to grab at least the track position, not a Battle 4 position on track. Cato currently 2 laps down in 25th to the front end.
Tonight, so unfortunately it looks like it's a YouTube wide thing, as I'm getting reports from Hugo as well. So we'll get out what we can to you guys. This will probably be posted up after the race here, because everything's all over the place. Looks like we're green for the moment, so we will try and get you most of this race as much as we can anyway. We've got green for the moment, James, so I guess for the moment let's try and recap, because we've been kind of sporadic lately on the coverage. Quickly, what's going on?
Over David Washington, but Washington is the 3rd place car. That's the interesting thing this time around. Dylan Jones has managed to stay with Bermudez. He's the only one that's managed to stay with Bermudez. It's about 3 seconds now back to Washington, but only maybe 3-4 car lengths back to Jones. So those two are clearly the class of the field at the moment. And then you've got Washington, who sits there kind of in a no man's land, a second around him either side of that 98 machine. He's got some time to make up on the first 2, but he's got about a second over Anthony DeBarro, who now sits in the 4th position. Got around Brandon Bowie there, who I guess got loose on corner exit. So he's up there in the 4th spot. And then it's Mitch Rollo in the 5th position. And then Brandon Bowie 6th, David Comstock 7th. Those are separated by about a car length or 2 per car. So a little bit of spacing between those guys, but they're relatively close together. And then you have to go back about a full second to find Trevor Roppolo, who currently sits in 8th. And then Andrew Farunas and Daniel Everhart are racing right together there. A second pack of Roppolo. That's for 9th and 10th. And then a really good battle here for 11th, 12th, and 13th. You've got Chris Hurlow, Dwayne Vincent, and Kyle Barnes racing.
Ooh, Hurlow!
And Hurlow got a little bit loose off the corner there. I don't know if he got contact with the wall, but might be fighting the handling of that 87 a little bit.
Yeah, he's got some big time right side damage, so he did get a piece of the wall there, James, and side by side right now with Kyle, and he's going to clear him just barely off of turn 2. That was close, but the Superman car got a little bit scratched up on the right side, but it looks for the moment to be serviceable for that 87, so he's going to do what he can to maybe try and make up that track position. But yeah, fantastic battles going on, and now teammates going at it. Actually, no, Eberhard just going to go right past Freenash. Freenash just lets him go, so the 90 of Daniel Eberhard back up to 9th here. He lost a ton of time, and unfortunately didn't see what was going on while I was trying to fix up the stream, but as of right now, Daniel Eberhardt's going to make his way back up to the front here, James, and he's got to pass a lot of cars to do that, including 2 guys going at it in front of him. You see there the 99 and the 96.
99, 96, all right there. The Boomtown Sin drivers making things happen. So a pretty solid run for both DeBarro and Rollo. And we talked about it. DeBarro needs a win in the worst way. And other drivers on that cut line, I think there's been no question. He's looked like the one most capable of finding a way to victory lane, but just hasn't been able to put a full race together. How big would it be for him if he can get up past Washington and then past Bermudez and Jones at some point later on in the race to go get a victory?
It would absolutely be huge, and I think that whole team, that whole organization really needs a win, James, because DeBarro has been close so many times in the points and still doesn't have that win. He's had shots at it, just hasn't gone through for him. And if Rollo were to come back, James, and win tonight, that would be huge, because not only would it cement him as, well, I would say one of the dark horses to win the championship. He's been in this scenario before. He knows how to deal with these championship scenarios before. Not a rookie to this series, was in one of the tightest points battles we've seen in RSR's history.
How great that championship battle was, and how terrifying would that be? Because if he gets the win, then I suppose if you're DeBarro, you're happy that you have a teammate in victory lane, but that also scares you because that takes away one more spot of championship positions available, and then it puts the pressure on you to go find a win even more, because there will be even less positions for the drivers to get in on points.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, James, and I think the pressure for Anthony DeBarro is pretty high already, and I know a lot of guys have returned to that Boomtown Sim organization now that we're kind of past the apex of the summer. I mean, obviously Rollo back on track, but also guys like Jared Como up in the box, and I've even seen a couple other notables of that organization starting to come back onto the sim scene again, and that's really, I think, helped Anthony build that consistency. And for the moment, he's still good because he's good on points, but that's, you know, nowadays with how NASCAR operates, it's really not a guarantee that you're going to make it in the chase, even as big of a points gap that DeBarro has, because you never know what can happen.
You do not want to be relying on points, I think, in order to make it into the playoffs at Chicagoland come September. That is a terrifying prospect, I think, in every sense, and it's one that you would like to try and avoid some way, somehow. So DeBarro will try and race his way back up to the front, but man, Bermudez and Jones, just I think spanking, at least for the moment, is the best way to describe it, because those two are just in a league of their own completely. You have to go almost a full straightaway back to find DeBarro in third, so that should give you some sort of indication of what kind of gap the 14 and the 11 are putting on not just DeBarro, but the rest of this field.
But there was a guy who was a little bit closer to him, but he hit pit road. David Washington makes his pit stop now, so, well, I guess it's time, James. We got to break out the calculators, because apparently Andy Kessler's doing that on the box for the 98, because he's the only one who pit right now. And right now it's not forcing the 14, the 11 to come down, but if I know Kessler, this is his home track. He knows how to get this play these strategy games here in New Hampshire, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Massachusetts native is up to something in that pit box.
The lobster rolls have him thinking a little bit differently, I think, tonight. Wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, there's a bit of home pride for Andy Kessler here, too. One of the magnates over there at Aegis Motorsports, and a very, very proud Minuteman himself. So we'll see what he does on top of the box, trying to guide his drivers to yet another victory in the 2017 Full Throttle Cup Series. But definitely a short pit from Washington, and would be very curious to see what kind of numbers they're looking at and what they're trying to set themselves up for towards the end of this race. That's what that pit stop clearly does for the 98 machine. The question is, when do they come in again, and where does it put them in relation to, you know, lap 120, lap 125, lap 130, and right within that range? And can they make it maybe on one more pit stop?
If there's anyone going to try and stretch it, James, I have to think that 98's probably going to have a decent shot at it, as we see him going side by side with Mitch Rollo now coming down the front straightaway. And as they, for Bermudez and Jones, they're just so far in front that, James, you had to take a drastic strategy if you're going to be able to do anything, as I believe another car down pit road possibly Daniel Eberhardt, I believe, has made his stop as well. He's behind Washington now, so he plumbed down the order. And Eberhardt, even in a worse way than Washington is. Washington has a ton of time on the 90, so I think it's going to take a big strategy to be able to knock those two off the top step of the podium, or the top two steps of the podium as of right now. But we'll have to see if it works. But a lot of people trying that short pit strategy. Let's see what happens.
Trying to do something just to throw off Bermudez and Jones, but that's how good those two have been. It's been a while since we've seen two cars jump out in front of the field and then just run away completely the way that Bermudez and Jones have done so far tonight. But you see a lot of guys. I see Gio Bamonte coming down pit road here in relatively short order, trying to see if there are any other drivers who are trying.
Barnes still left.
Maybe Kyle Barnes. Yes, Barnes just came down pit road too. So everybody just desperately trying to do something. And boy, wouldn't Bermudez and Jones love to see a yellow flag right now, because that would completely shoot the short pitting strategy right in the foot.
Oh yeah, it absolutely would. And those guys banking on it going green all the way to the end. And well, I'm sure someone will be able to dig up the trends for us. We might have to do that during break. But James, I have to think New Hampshire on the sim has never traditionally been a clean race. And if I remember correctly, this track, obviously it's a little bit bigger than Martinsville, but it shares some of its characteristics, and also from time to time shares its penance for yellow fever. But in this case, the field has done a very good job of spreading itself out. And generally on the sim, that means this race is going to go green flag. And I have to think, with as spread out as everyone is for right now, we haven't seen a lot of aggressive driving out of these drivers. So I think this does have a shot at going green to the end.
Perhaps. I think the key with,
if I didn't jinx it.
Well, you might have jinxed it, but I think the key in all of this, and the key in that line of thinking, is that these cars are pretty well spaced out. There's not really too many places on track that I see as I just kind of go around and take a look at things where you've got drivers right on top of each other battling for position where they could potentially make contact. The only way I think we're getting a yellow at this point is if someone manages to make an error all on their own, and then they either spin out and cause the yellow or they collect somebody else. So one of the two may be true, but for now, it's been pretty clean out there for the most part tonight. A solid job of driving for most of these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of a battle going on right now. Jonathan Cadell gets way out of the way for Chris Hurlow. Not sure what's going on there, but went across track. I saw it on the timing there, James. And speaking of timing, you know what helps these guys figure out their fuel strategy and everything like that? A little program called JRT.
A little program called JRT. That would be Joel Real Timing for those of you who have been uninitiated, which happens to be the official timing software of LSRTV. Whether you spend your time on the sim, behind the wheel, on the pit box, or from the spotter stand, JRT is the go-to software for iRacing timing and scoring analytics. Get yourself a basic download for free, or you can get the pro version today at joel-real-timing.com. So, Joel Real Timing, good friends of ours here at LSRTV. Golsa Bermudez, clearly good friends with New Hampshire Motor Speedway at the moment, but he's really just put on a number. Out in front to the tune of 1.2 seconds over Dylan Jones, but I think more importantly, almost 6 seconds ahead of Anthony DeBarro. And if you're wondering about where our drivers who have come down in short pitted are, David Washington currently in the 20th position, 1 lap down. Daniel Eberhardt 22nd, 1 lap down. Kyle Barnes 23rd, 1 lap down. So all kind of bunched right there in the early 20s. It hasn't looked like it's paid off yet, but things can change. We can see the unexpected, and it's not uncommon for races here at New Hampshire especially to just completely flip on their lid and turn in a new direction.
And Bowie just came down pit road, so different strategy for the 44, waited a little bit, and as a result, he's now going to be behind Washington, Eberhardt, and you can see Kyle Barnes go by on the outside in the 15. So Bowie decided he wanted to wait a little bit longer. That does mean he's going to have better tires coming up here, James, and he's probably going to be able to pass a bunch of cars, but I don't know. he might be jumping on the strategy on the bandwagon a little too late there, because he's going to have decent tires, but I don't know if he's going to be able to plow through this field, because the 98 just got past Dylan Jones. That's how much time these guys have to make up. He's not even to the 14 in Bermudez yet. That's how far up front the 14 is, and the 11 even now is starting to lose time.
And the scary thing for Bowie is that he's working a little bit of lap traffic too. Almost got into, I believe that was Kyle Barnes coming out of turn 2 there, and nearly hit the 15 on corner exit. So you have to kind of tiptoe through the tulips just to make sure that you can get back up to Bermudez. And then there is also the matter of getting back up to Bermudez that he has to do too. And gets a really good drive there through the center of the corner. Actually goes up a little bit higher than he'd like to be, but he's just trying to get back to it and get back up to David Washington, who is about maybe a half a track ahead of Brandon Bowie as it stands. So gonna have to make up a pretty big amount of time just to get back to Washington and really make that strategy worthwhile. In the meantime, also of note here, Washington about to unlap himself from Bermudez. He'll look to the inside. I doubt that Bermudez is going to put up much of a fight here, and the 14 driver will not, and the 98 driver will go through. So Washington is back on the lead lap now, having cleared the 14. Does that change anything, and does that change strategy for your driver if you're sitting on top of the pit box, Cisco?
Well, we know that as of right now, Dave would probably... We've gone long enough now where if a caution came out, that's not guaranteed lead for Dave now. He's probably going to want to come back down pit road if the yellow comes out from here, because I think you're going to be at such a disadvantage against those leaders. You might have to just hemorrhage the rest of the race and just try and stop the bleeding. So for Washington and Kessler on the box, I honestly think their best strategy, just stay out and just pray the race goes green, as Dwayne Vincent we see come down pit road in the 13. It's looking like the 14 just has a full house right now, James, and maybe even a royal flush, because I'm running out of ideas where he might be able to do anything. I think that late pit is going to be the only thing. If this goes green and the 14 loses enough time due to the new tires of David Washington, it's going to be hard-pressed to beat that 14, James. I really think he's got it in the bag as it sits right now, but we still have to see, will this early pit strategy work for these guys?
Also of note here is that the more this race goes on, the more I see Dylan Jones starting to overdrive corner entry a little bit as he goes deep into his green flag run, and he's starting to run up towards that fourth groove there, especially in turns 3 and 4. Bermudez is able to hold it down in the third lane a little bit more, so every time Jones runs up the track a bit, he just loses time to the Oakley Ford Fusion. So
and James, I just looked at something, and I hate to cut you off, but this just came in because I'm looking at it. Colson Bermudez last time ran a 30.8. David Washington on new tires ran a 30.7. That's the difference right there. I don't know how Bermudez is doing it, but he's running fresh tire laps on old stinted tires. That's not enough time for Dave to get back up there. And now the 14 pits Jones in as well. But if Bermudez is that fast on old tires, that's big time problems for the 98.
Scary, right? Really scary. And now I think it may well just come down to fuel mileage if this goes green the rest of the way. That's what you have to worry about. That might be the only thing that gets you any sort of saving grace, because I'm not convinced that Bermudez is going to be able to go all the way without help. But Washington, when he pits again, I think should be able to make it the rest of the way. So that could end up being the difference. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be the case. The 14 comes out of pit road. He's about a straightaway back. Washington now just going to 3, but that's not as big as the gap was at one point. It was a bigger gap. It was more than a straightaway between Bermudez and Washington here. So the 14's going to have the upper hand on the new tires now. The question is, can he exploit that, be able to make up that time, or is this just job done for Dave Washington? I will tell you one thing. Daniel Eberhard, he may be on this long pit strategy, but I don't think it's going to work, because I can see the 90 right now out the front window of the 14. I think Eberhard might be, I think Washington might be the only one in a position to actually make this work.
Maybe. That's the interesting thing. We may well be looking at fuel shot. I really think that's about it. As you see, Bermudez go underneath Everhart as they come down the front straightaway and into turn one. Makes it look really easy. So, having already made it past the halfway point tonight, we're going to take a moment to complete our iRacing midway race break, which, as always, is brought to you by iRacing.
You see the 14?
Is
I don't see the 14, and I think right as we cut to the midway race break, and I don't believe I'm saying this, I believe we just lost the 14.
Waiting for word to come through via official race control as to whether or not
Police lost a lap already. So
connection issues. So yeah, you're right.
Wow. Well, throw all that out the window because we got a brand new race, James. We just lost the 14 to connection issue, and as a result, I don't even know anymore. What are we looking at?
Well, then that should give Dylan Jones control of the race under the regular pit strategy, and David Washington leads everybody under the sort of new pit strategy and the short pitting pit strategy.
Oh, it's a black screen. A black screen from Bermudez. Oh, my goodness.
Disappointment and heartbreak, I think, is the only thing you can say for the computer to go out on him with the way he was running this race. I know he'll come back in September and desperately want to make things happen because he had the best car all night, no question. And there it is, the receipt throughput fell to unacceptable level note on Bermudez. So that will end his bid for a race victory in one of the most stunning ways we've seen here in a while, for it to not be anything of his own accord, just faulty equipment robbing Bermudez. I think you can't call it anything less than that, robbing Bermudez of a chance to win a race tonight.
That's our equivalent, though. I mean, James, we talk about, the differences between sim racing and real life. That's about the equivalent of what we would see as an engine failure in sim racing. So unfortunately for the 14, nothing he could do. He's obviously not going to be happy about it, as he's letting us know in chat right now, but such comes the way with racing, and even sim racing pushes equipment to its limit, and in this case, unfortunately for Bermudez, it doesn't work out for him, and I have not seen that in a while, and that absolutely that's just painful right there.
It hurts, and it's one of those where I think you can universally sympathize, and it's one of those rare cases where you can break impartiality for a bit and say that I think I speak for everybody here at LSRTV when we say we feel bad for Coulson, because it wasn't a racing incident. It wasn't anything that he did, just, faulty equipment and taking it away from him. It wasn't his fault at all. Nothing he could have done on that, as you said, but now loses his chance to go out and win the race. So, having gone through that bombshell, which I think caught us so off guard that we didn't even really give it the bombshell treatment that it probably deserved, maybe we try the midway race break again and see what we can get done this time without Coulson Bermudez, unfortunately, in the top spot or near the top spot as he had been all night. But regardless, our iRacing midway race break is brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation. Developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. In the fast-paced world of esports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing, with officially sanctioned racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, the Cars Tour, USAC, Blancpain GT, the VLN Endurance Championship, and more. Christopher Hurlow, not James Bond, is your race leader, running Superman colors too. So we're mixing up all our favorite superheroes and heroes who don't necessarily have superpowers, I guess. Shane Ewing currently sits in the second position. Dylan Jones runs in third, making his way back up towards the front. He was racing with Bermudez, so if you're looking for anybody running on the regular pit strategy leading the field, it's him. David Washington in the fourth spot now on that alternative pit strategy. When they come down and when his cohorts come down the next time by, they should be good to go on fuel. We don't know about Dylan Jones, though, so that will be something worth keeping your eye on. Eberhart now up to the 5th position after short pitting. Bowie came in a little bit after Washington, and Eberhart and company runs 6th. Kyle Barnes sits in 7th at the moment. Trevor Roppolo runs in the 8th spot. Mitch Rollo runs in 9th, and then David Comstock rounds out your top 10.
11th is going to go to Andrew Freenash. 12th going to go to Dwayne Vincent. 13th will go to Doug Roth in the 43. 14th going to go to Nathan Little in the 41. Jonathan Cadell runs 15th. 16th going to go to Joseph LaPlaca. 17th is going to go to Anthony DeBarro. 18th going to go to Nick Silver. 19th to Sean Bounty. Corey A. Wolf rounds out your top 20.
Last 2 cars in the lead lap are Mike Kelly in 21st and Gabe Wood in 22nd. 1 lap down in 23rd is John Abbott in the 10 machine. Ross Cato is the other car 1 lap down. He's 24th. 25th, Colson Bermudez, who got the black screen race-winning chance death, I suppose, is the best way to put it. Unfortunate end to his bid for a race victory tonight, but sits in the 25th spot as it stands. Austin Coop got caught up in an early incident, runs in 26th at the moment. Sean Casto currently runs in 27th, 28th. Belongs to Lionel Callisto. These drivers all multiple laps down here. Corbin Hemstreet and Randy Yoakum running 29th and 30th. And then 31st and 32nd are Douglas Wyatt and Gio Bramante. That will conclude your iRacing Midway Race Spring. And for more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com to sign up today. For a limited time, you can visit iRacing.com/World of Outlaws and take advantage of exclusive promo codes to get yourself on the sim with a 1-year membership for half the price. Once again, that's iRacing.com/World of Outlaws if you want to take advantage of nothing short of a fantastic deal. As we head back towards the front of the field, Dylan Jones has reassumed control of this race, and as this thing plays out, we continue to go green here, almost down to 35 laps to go. We've already made it to lap 92, so Jones maybe saves fuel, I don't know, but that's, I think, the only real question, I think, that can be asked at the moment. Jones and the fuel. Because we know that Washington and company will make it. Can Jones make it? That might be the only thing left standing between him and victory tonight.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, James. And Colson, well, he's in the chat now because unfortunately the night's done for the 14. He's annoyed, but he has the feeling that the 11 should be able to make it. So the driver who was ahead of him says the 11's going to make it. Question is, will he be able to outrun his teammates to do it?
Can he? We'll see. But we'll see after we take our first non-stop race break here during our coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series at New Hampshire. So we'll take a moment to go side by side and make sure you don't miss a moment of the action. We'll be right back here with the finish of tonight's race from New Hampshire on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing. Welcome back to LSRTV's coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live tonight from New Hampshire Motor Speedway in Loudon, New Hampshire. As we get ready to work lap 100, we'll complete 99 this time by Dylan Jones. Out in front of this race, has had the second best car for the majority of it, but now with the passing of the screen of Colson Bermudez and the black screen of death popping up on that 14 Machines rig, it is now Dylan Jones who assumes control of this race, and he's out in front of his teammate by 5.5 seconds now. So the 11 cars got it rolling. As we said right before we went to break, he might not be able to make it on fuel. We know Washington and company will, though, when they come down pit road. That might be the only thing holding back Jones, but if he go green the rest of the way, he just has to complete the final 35 laps to get his second victory of 2017.
Yeah, exactly. And meanwhile, the question is for the 98 camp, what's their game plan? Are they going to be able to make it on tires, or are they going to be able to make it on fuel as that regard? But either way, I think the 98 is going to be out there for the long haul. I would have to think, unless they just can't make it. They've been out there for a while on pit stops, and I'll be honest, we're not quite positive on the fuel run numbers. So, well, we'll just see it as we go, James. The question is, who will run dry first? And, well, I think it's plainly obvious, probably going to be the guy who pit first, but the question is, can both of them make it, or can only one of them? Or none of them. Or none of them. Maybe none of them can make it.
Also possible. Also want to note here that Brandon Bowie did get around David Washington, so I think we're at the point in the run where Bowie's tires, having pitted a little bit later than Washington, may well start to be paying off, and maybe the 44's got a really good long run car. That's kind of the way it looks on that 44 Elwood Designs machine. He's gone up past Washington and Everhart and pitted later, so I don't know, maybe he goes for a splashing gas and 2 tires to the finish. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. But Dylan Jones continuing to just stay in front. Hasn't really had a whole lot of traffic he has to worry about. You see Gabe Wood and Hurlo fighting. That's for position. That's actually for the lucky dog spot at the moment. So Gabe Wood going to surrender that position to his former teammate. And I'm starting to notice Kyle Barnes, he's down pit road, and he's kind of in the middle of the strategy war here, not really on one side or the other. So starting to think, when are we going to see the rest of these guys in, and will it be soon? I think it's going to have to be soon if they have to pit, because they're going to need that extra time on the new tires. But that's assuming that the other guys don't have to pit.
Yeah, and I think making sure that you get enough fuel packed in too. We talked about it a lot in the last 5 to 10 minutes, but it's very true no matter what. It'll just be a question of whether or not some of these guys can make it to the end and who decides to come down pit road for service in that case. Not really seeing much of anybody at the moment, though. They're all kind of just hanging out and trying to hang around and just click off these laps and be somewhere safe. That, I think, is the key for everybody here, because we know that the pit stops are going to be what decides this race. They're just trying to prepare themselves more often than not.
Absolutely, and if you want to take a look at the lap times here, this is what's telling the story. Dylan Jones, 30.58 across the line. Brandon Bowie's going to come across to complete his lap, 30.95, so a 4/10 difference between the two. And then you got 5/10 back to Dave Washington, the 31.1s, and basically everyone back, apart from actually pretty quick right now, I do have to say. Mitch Rollo just threw down a 30.4, so I don't know where he got that from, but that might be a driver to keep an eye on, is that 96, because that was a really good lap that time by.
We don't know where his tires are. We don't know if he's coming down pit road. We don't know. We don't know a lot of things, and what makes it hard on our end is that there are so many different strategies to try and keep track of, because just about all of these drivers up at the front of the field came down pit road at different times. So it's not just 1 or 2 groups of people. It's about 5 or 6 or 7 different strategies we're working with, and it's only going to clear itself up. At least the big picture will, as we get down to, maybe 15 and 10 laps to go.
Yeah, absolutely, James. And Mitch Rollo's kind of at the back of this. Well, we could call it a battle pack, except they're not really battling. You see Bowie up the road a little bit as we look out from the front of Mitch Rollo. You see Bowie. Then you got the two red cars in front of him, behind him, rather, David Washington and Daniel Eberhardt, respectively. Then you got David Comstock in the Gary Mercer Trucking entry. And then you look behind Rollo all the way back, and that's Shane Ewing, who's a lap down, as well as, I believe, Trevor Roppolo back in the picture there as well. He is actually the car behind Rollo, and he's kind of come out of no man's land to have a decent top 10 run, so a great run for the 9. And that's a team that, well, they got it locked in on the first race, James, but apart from that, we haven't really heard a lot out of the 9 camp all year.
Not too much out of the 9 camp, though. He's been quietly consistent, been in the top 10 more often than not in weeks, and I think will be there. Maybe one of the most unassuming drivers to come into the playoffs, but nothing crazy happening too much with the 9 ever. Just kind of waiting around for September. Meanwhile, action here on track with the 42 machine. David Comstock now in a battle with Mitch Rollo, trying to hang on here, and now clears Daniel Eberhardt. So Comstock will get up and go to the 4th position.
Yeah, and Comstock's going to get that position as well as Rollo, and looks like Eberhardt, whatever reason, the feeling has gone away on the 90. Might have used up those tires, and now Dave Washington going to surrender that position as well. So right now it's going the way of the non-Aegis drivers because it's Bowie, Comstock, and if Rollo can get past him, we could very well have Dave Washington surrendered to 5th, and that would be huge because that's a top 4 with no Aegis drivers, and it's something I have to say I don't think we've seen in a very long time, Pike.
A very, very long time. You've got Dylan Jones leading at the front of the field. So that's their one caveat, I think, in all this. They've got him up there. But yes, a bit of a slower day, I guess, by Aegis standards here in New Hampshire, outside of Jones, who...
I mean, they do sit 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. So, I mean, we say slow.
by their standards.
Yes.
Because they've been dominant throughout the entirety of this Full Throttle Cup Series season. So, in the meantime, still watching and waiting, trying to see if anybody else comes down pit road as Jones puts another car a lap down. I believe that's Corey Wolf that he sends under the -1L banner. So next up on the list would be Chris Hurlow, who led this race not too long ago as we cycled through pit strategy, and Mike Kelly would be in line after that. A very badly beaten up front end of the number 2 machine. Finalist in the championship battle last year after winning the fall race at Phoenix. Going to need to try and find a win, I think, at some point, because the points are there for him if he needs them, but he just hasn't quite really been all that strong, I think, this year. He had a good run in Atlanta. Incidentally, the last race that Dylan Jones won, but that's probably the last time I really saw the 2-car fighting towards the front of the field for a race victory.
Yeah, and Kelly's kind of tapered off the last couple weeks. Really hasn't been up front as much as it looks like. David Comstock, nope, he's back. Okay. I was worried because he went white on my timing there for a moment. I thought we were going to have a repeat of the 14. We're good, though. Comstock up to 2nd, though. So great job from him. And now it looks like Brandon Bowie's actually the one who's sliding backwards because he's now under attack from Mitch Rollo for that 3rd spot. And Rollo going to jump to the inside. And that could be job well done right there, unless the 44 can fight back on the outside. No, he slides back. So Mitch Rollo up to 3rd. Only 2nd start this season for the 96. He said he was rusty. Well, he shook the rust off in 1 week, and as a result, top 3 right now. And, well, throw everything out the window, Mike.
Yellow flag. Lap 150. Well...
we don't make this up. We don't make this up. That just happened.
Yeah, well, okay. Everybody's going to come down pit road, and now it's going to be who gets the best pit stop and who can hang with Dylan Jones.
I'm not really even sure what the yellow was for. There's everyone slowing down. I'll take another look, see if we can get a report on what actually was the cause of the yellow, because I have no idea.
I'm with you. I'm trying to search through this field myself and see if I can find something, but I haven't found anything yet. So I'll make sure my attention is here on these leaders coming down for what presumably will be their last pit stop. And Boy, you really hope you don't overshoot it or undershoot your pit stall here. That's really the only way you end up in trouble. Jones leads them down towards the long end, towards the turn one end. He'll come in, get stopped, get into the box clean, and hope he gets out first.
Yeah, that's the case. Everyone coming down pit road, and Pike, I'll leave it to you. Who's going to win the battle off pit road? Are we going to see any two tires? Someone's probably going to try it, aren't they?
Not that I saw. It is Jones who wins the battle. Then David Comstock, and then Rollo, who gets up to third. Bowie to fourth. Washington fifth. Rapolo sixth. Freenar seventh. And then I can't quite tell from there. So we'll see if anybody else decides to pop up behind those. But just about as you were as when they came down pit road. When they come out of pit road, not really much changed in the order there, so it's going to be a pure race of speed, I think, to close this out.
So I found out what the yellow was, James. Apparently, Daniel Eberhardt spun on his own in one of the corners.
Not uncommon here at New Hampshire, because we talked about it towards the top of the broadcast. If you get on the throttle too hard too early, you can loop it around pretty quickly and send yourself towards the inside retaining wall. And maybe I'm crazy, but I have a feeling that's probably what happened with Mr. Everhart.
We have a second look. I'll see if we can get the second look on the replay. Oh, yeah, no, actually, he just got way loose off of 2. And Eberhardt, we had seen the tires going away on the 90. And unfortunately for him, he paid for it because, you know, had a couple drivers come to me over the radio and they're like, well, the 90 couldn't have made it on field. Well, now he's definitely not going to make it because that's huge front end damage to the 90. So all the conspiracy theory hats, you could throw them away now because that is massive damage on the 90.
Won't really matter too much, I think, save for maybe making sure that he watches the rear tires a little bit when we come back here in the fall for the playoffs, because this is indeed a playoff track. For one last time here in 2017 before we get Las Vegas in that spot, I presume, for the 2018 season in conjunction with the schedule change NASCAR announced earlier this year. Double triple headers out in the desert, but it comes at the expense of the fall date here at New Hampshire. So starting in 2018, it'll be just the July trip that they make up here in New England, and who knows? Maybe I get the sense there might be a future for this track in the Pinty series, maybe more than anything else. We'd love to see the Canadians come down here. But lights off on the pace car, so we'll get back to it. Going to work lap 120 when they get the green. It's Jones, Comstock, Rollo, Bowie, Washington, your top 5. Rapolo, Freenar, Cadell, Roth, Vincent, your top 10. When they come back to the stripe, 16 laps left to settle the race here at New Hampshire. And then lights come on the pace car one more time, so I think they'll extend the caution, so it will be...
Yeah, wave rounds.
Working on the wave rounds to try and get everybody lined up back the right way. They thought they could get it done within the proper amount of time and the regular amount of time, but they need a little bit more time to make things happen and get that set up, which gives us the chance to say that tonight's broadcast of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series is brought to you by Hippie's Paint Shop. Hippie's Paint Shop has over 5 years of experience providing top quality custom paint schemes for all iRacing vehicles at a low price. Because after all, at Hippie's Paint Shop, the cost isn't high, just the painter. Seen them on Douglas Wyatt's car today, Doug Roth's car today. Yes.
And how about Doug Roth, the 43 running 9th? How about that for a run?
Might as well just go ahead and call it Doug's Paint Shop instead at that point. Shoot. All the Dougs. all the Dougs running with Hippie's Paint Shop, paint jobs, and more friends of ours here at LSRTV. Very appreciative of the work that they do. So lights are off on the pace car now this time. So time to get our game faces back on here. 15 laps to settle this race at New Hampshire. Dylan Jones has had the best car of the remaining field all night. Can he close it out? Green flag out once again, and David Comstock got himself a restart there on the outside. Jones will only just be able to... No, he won't. He won't be able to clear up. Comstock, if he plays this right, could get the run on the outside and is going to be able to stay alongside the 11 coming out of turn 2.
And a great drag race as they head into turn 3. Comstock will not give in on the outside. He's going to send it into 3, and Jones going to be able to get the pass done. And now Comstock looking for the undercut. A little bit of a kill crease crossover. And I think he'll have it. No, he didn't get in the wall, but he's going to be able to complete the pass for the moment. But David Comstock will not die. He wants that lead, and this is going to be his best opportunity all day.
Stock. That's exactly what the 42 was doing. He tried to get underneath and pull the crossover move on Jones out of 4, but just overdrove corner exit ever so slightly. It wasn't a lot, but there was a little bit of a bobble from the 42, and that kept him from getting the run that he needed to get. Meanwhile, battle for third, side by side. Mitch Rollo, David Washington. Washington now trapped to the inside. Brandon Bowie there. Trouble in the back of the field. One car around hard into the inside retaining wall. Caution flag will come out. Couldn't see who it was, but 16. I saw contact out for 4, and hearing that it is the 16 machine of Corey Wolf that ended up in trouble. Just got turned around, I think, on corner exit there, and let's see, got up. A little bit of contact with Chris Hurlow, sent those two into the inside retaining wall.
So if you're David Comstock, now you're thinking, well, I didn't get that time on the restart. As we take a look, Hurlow, yep, that was big time contact. So both drivers of that going to be in a bad way here coming to the next restart. But if you're David Comstock, James, I'm thinking too early. I wouldn't come down to take tires if I'm the leaders. So at this point, you think, well, how many more shots do I have of this on the outside, as we're going to ride on board the 87 for that incident there, as we saw. But what's the game plan for if you're the 42? Do you try and guess the restart? Do you try and race it and maybe try and get the undercut later on the race, or do you try and go from the start? What do you think?
I almost wonder if the answer is D, come down, take tires, and hope everybody else comes down with you, because I think you've got to have the fresh rubber to beat the 11 car. And they tried. They tried to do it. He thought about it. Is anybody going to go for it here? No, not really anybody at the front of the field. So everybody too afraid to gamble the track position that they've already got to go give it up for some tires and maybe try and run down people. And I wonder if that plays into Jones's hands, because that was a restart of his lifetime that Comstock got. You can do it once, you can do it twice. I don't know if we get a third restart here, which is about all we'll have time for, because we're closing in on that 5 lap to go mark, the patented Pasoko point of no return, upon which we will run under yellow flag to the finish. So don't really have too many restarts left in this if we get the yellow flags quickly. So maybe one more shot for people to come down pit road after this if we get another yellow.
If we get another yellow, which, well, if we look at the trends here, James, the trends say that if we're getting 2 yellows within the last 20 laps, we're probably going to have a third. But that's the trends. And this race went green for how long? And given the nature of New Hampshire and the way the racing works out here, it's going to go one of two ways. They're either going to wreck probably 3 laps into the run, or they'll go green to the end, because I really don't think once they get a little bit spread out, it's very hard to be able to do anything because of the single founder nature of this track, because it's a very one groove racetrack. So if we put the Larry Mack hat on, I think these guys go green. If they can make it through the first couple of laps, I think we'll end this thing under green. If they do not, well, then I think we'll be at that point where we're probably going to end this under the guidance of the pace car. But remains to be seen how crazy these guys get on the restart. But if you're David Comstock, or even if you're Mitch Rollo, James, you have to think, what an opportunity. You weren't here all season. You get a shot. Now, keep in mind, he has to be top 30 in points, but nonetheless, he gets a shot to make it into the chase, coming in segment 2, almost past halfway through the season already. That's huge for the 96.
Huge for the 96, huge for Boomtown. I think I just refer people to the little diatribe we gave earlier on what a win would do for Boomtown Sim Racing, for Mitch Rollo, for Anthony DeBarro and company. It would change everything, I think. And now Rollo's got a chance to jump in and make it happen. DeBarro a little bit further back in 13th. We'll probably try and get a solid top 10 out of this race at New Hampshire. So, lights are off on the pace car. Restart to come on lap 128. So 8 laps to go when they cross the stripe. And yeah, maybe 3 laps or 4 laps until they get a yellow, or they go green all the way, or 1 lap. Who knows, Cisco?
Well, we'll just have to find out, but the lights are out, as you mentioned, on the Ford Mustang pace car. The field is in control of Dylan Jones. Question is...
Time to fix verb tense and subject-verb agreement there. How about Jones's control of the field, or has control of the field?
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Good old summer brain fry brought to you.
Oh, yeah.
Scaramuza. Fancy like a fried egg. Off goes Dylan Jones like the running chicken of lobster-eating demolition. I don't know. Something about lobster rolls there. It'll work. But Jones there, up to the front. Now cleared 2-3 car lengths. Comstock did not get as good of a restart last time. They're 3 wide. They're back in 10th.
That's not going to work.
Yep, there we go. Yellow flag as they come off of turn 2 and just don't have the room to make things happen. And I really don't want to use the boom goes the dynamite cliche, but boy, it certainly is applicable here, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I saw it out of the corner of my eye when we came back. I was watching the leaders, and the 43 got a terrible restart. I'm not sure what happened, but we got the overhead look. He gets punted in the back by Mike Kelly. They're 3 wide. DeBarro tried to get the undercut here. And coming out at turn 2, the 43 gets pinched up. Oh, he just got loose, got into the 99, who was apexing up. And that's how the news goes. And for the 99, for Shane Ewing, who was having a decent night and could have came out of here, well, that didn't work at all, and it didn't for DeBarro, who was looking for a top 10, so it all fell apart. And like I said, that's just how the news goes sometimes, James.
I believe the quote you're looking for is, "That's the way the news goes," perhaps?
No, that'd be copyright. I can't use that.
Fine. Okay, touche. I guess I can't call you Rick Sanchez either, can I?
Nope. Now we're gonna get unlisted.
Man. Okay. Well, we'll get back to it here, back at the front of the field. I believe this is going to set us up with a 2-lap restart, maybe?
2 or 3 lap, potentially, but if these guys don't go 3 wide, I think we have a shot at finishing this out. If these guys go 3 wide, well, we saw what happened last time, and I don't think New Hampshire is a big enough track for that to even work on a geometry scale. So I don't know, James, if you're the 42, do you have to go as soon as the hammer drops? Is there any room of margin where you can sit back, maybe try and force the 11 into a mistake, or maybe wait in case he's going to undercut you? Or do you go as soon as the flag drops? Because I feel like he doesn't have that time anymore.
It's a really hard call to make, I think, because I think the only thing that really matters is that you have to get a perfect restart here. You absolutely must get a perfect restart here, like he got on the last restart before this past one. This last one, the most recent one, wasn't so great, but the one before that, he was able to stick with Jones on the outside, and I don't necessarily know how you get to that. I guess trying to jump it a little bit will probably be the best way to accomplish that, but that's what you have to do, no matter what. Or does anybody come in and try and take tires here, perhaps, for a 2-lap restart? Because if Comstock did it, maybe it forces the rest of the field. Maybe somebody else does. I don't know.
I think they missed the opportunity, James. I think they passed pit road already. I don't think they have the opportunity to do that now. So, and realistically, if I'm the 42, I don't have a whole lot of friends up here. So if I try and fake them out, they're probably not going to come down pit road with me. If I'm the 98 or the 11, well, if you're the 11, you could probably get the 98 to go with you, but no one else is going to go with you. And if you're the 96, no one else is going to go with you either, because the 99 just got taken out in that wreck. So I think not a lot of friends up there. The only friends are probably the 11 and the 98. Everyone else is just going to be trying to race each other out for the win here.
Not even a hint of co-opetition was to be found throughout the field. Watching the lights on the pace car, they go on. So that should give us 3 laps. It looks like we'll complete lap 132 when they come across the stripe. So a little over 3 miles left to settle it here, Cisco. Any tips on restarts for these guys up at the front of the field?
I think we have to go back to what we saw happen to the 43 and do not spin those tires. You have to have a good launch, because if you spin those tires and you're on the inside, someone's just gonna jump to your inside, because that's very easy to do here, and we could end up with a lot of torn up sheet metal. But either way, 3 laps to go at the line. James, don't spin the tires, don't hit the guy in front of you, and, well, let's just see what happens.
You just kind of hope. I think that's all you can do. And if you're Dylan Jones, you try and close this out. After Colson Bermudez went out with technical issues on his rig, this has been his race, and he just nailed it. That might be the race right there, because Comstock did not get going at all. That might actually have been his worst restart of the 3, as they get 3 laps to go. You've got Washington underneath him. Comstock might not even be able to hang on to second here if he's careful, but he gets a good enough drive there, so he'll clear Rollo. He'll go to second. Everybody just kind of sorts out. Now it's Washington that might be in trouble. He's trapped on the inside going to turn 3.
Yeah, and it's going to depend on if these guys can get the apex correctly. The 42 may have a shot at Jones if he can get there in time, but he's running out of time. 2 laps to go at the line. He's got to get there now.
Has to do something. No. Caution somewhere in the back of the field, and that will hand the race to Dylan Jones, who will pick up his first victory since Atlanta, if he can make it around here and complete this final lap and a half.
And we'll stay with Jones just to make sure he secures that win, but the incident looked like problems between the number 2 of Mike Kelly, possibly Austin Coop in the 6. A lot of cars torn up there, so we'll take a look at that after the checkered flag, but there goes Jones, white flag in the air. For the 11, he just has to make it back, James.
And a strong run here for Dylan Jones. I think there's not really any way to look at it, as he and Colson Bermudez had the best cars in this field by a significant margin, and a well-deserved win, I think, doesn't really cover all of it. Jones has been the best car in this field in the second half of this race.
Yeah, absolutely, and he was up there with Colson, but even the 14 was pulling away from him. But the 11, keep in mind, he still had a pretty decent gap on the rest of the field as well. So when the 14 lost out due to equipment failure for the 14, the 11 decided to inherit the win, James.
And now here he comes to claim his rewards and that big lobster they hand out to the winner. Checkered flag in the air, and Dylan Jones gets his second win of the season and takes the victory here in the first race of the season at New Hampshire. David Comstock will finish second. David Washington rounds out your podium with the third place finish, and then Mitch Rollo and Trevor Rompolo. Strong run for that 9 car. Comes home P5 at the end of the right.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're going to see if we can take a look at that incident which brought out the final yellow flag. We'll see if we can get everything queued up for that, but not what these guys wanted to see, I'm sure. And, well, I'm sure the 11 was super happy with that, but either way, he gets the victory here. And I think he would have had it regardless, James, because as you mentioned, he just got such a good restart, and Comstock just had a really bad restart, and, well, I think it was over at that point.
A really, really good restart as we go back and kind of watch and see what happened there. I can't quite see what happened to Kelly. I saw he got loose, and then I guess he got selected into something.
I don't know what to make of that. He got really tight off of 4, and then all of a sudden just shot into Nathan Little in the 41. We'll take one last look at it before we head to break. But that was a very odd incident for the 2. Either way, he missed turn 3 completely, and big time accident.
So big wreck there, and a lot of chatter going on between some of the drivers in the field off of what happened there. But our focus will go back to the front of the field. Back to Dylan. Oh, well, you found something, it sounds like.
Yeah, the 2 got tapped going into turn 3. Then he turned dead left coming out of turn 4, and well, we'll let the stewards take a look at that because they're the ones who have to take a look at that. But I invite you to look at the replay for yourself because that was interesting.
So a little bit of work for...
And the 11 blew up the motor doing burnouts. That's how happy he is, James.
Excitement, I wouldn't blame him. It's his first victory since early March when we went to Atlanta. So we'll get the chance to talk to Dylan Jones and company at the front of the field here in just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back on the other side of it with post-race interviews and the full field rundown. This is coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking on LSRTV, the voice of sim racing.
There are 3 different paths if you want to call yourself a world champion of sim racing. NASCAR, open wheels, or endurance racing. But no matter which one you take, you can guarantee that the journey will always be tough, which few will ever complete. The iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, the premier road racing series in sim racing, started with a new car taking center stage. Then, it was Martin Kroenke resisting any challenge thrown at him to break the 5-year stranglehold of Gregor Hutu as being world champion. These drivers and teams are not just competing for pride, they're competing for money. And with over $20,000 in prizes for each of the series up for grabs, drivers really do put it all on the line.
The NASCAR Beginner for Series powered by iRacing is the premier NASCAR esports series featuring the cars and tracks from the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. The 2016 campaign saw a return to the top of the mountain by Ray Alfalla as a 3-time Oval World Champion. The march to that championship was not easy though, despite the fact that Ray Alfalla took home the most points in series history. It just also happened to be the tightest championship fight we had ever seen. These guys are set for the 2017 campaign.
The Blancpain GT Series hosts the top GT3 endurance teams in sim racing, with groups of 3 or more drivers sharing the wheel. This is a championship you can't win alone, and you need the same determination, passion and drive from your teammates to be successful. They often say that it takes just one mistake to lose a championship, and in team racing, it may not be your mistake that costs you the win. Last season, VRS Coanda Simsport won the championship by a single point. This year, who will step up to the plate?
These are the iRacing Esport World Championships, the pinnacle of sim racing competition. Catch it all season long with live coverage on iracing.com/live.
Welcome back to coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking here on LSRTV. Finishing off coverage of round 18 of the championship from New Hampshire Motor Speedway, where Dylan Jones goes to victory lane for the first time since Atlanta in March. And at this point, we'll take a moment to give you your full field rundown. At the end of the night, Dylan Jones brings home another win for Aegis, and maybe a basket of lobster rolls for Chef Andy Kessler. Gets a win for the guy on top of the pit box at the Minutemen's home track, next state over. David Comstock finishes second. Runner-up to Dylan Jones after a pretty solid pit stop strategy. Got him up there right before we started our last rash of yellows. David Washington tried pit strategy, didn't quite work out for him. Comes home third. Mitch Rollo finishes in the 4th position tonight. Trevor Rapallo finishes in 5th to round out the top 5. Brandon Bowie came home 6th. Andrew Freenars, nice drive for him. Started 24th, finishes 7th. So big move up through the field for Freenars. Same can be said for Dwayne Vincent, too. 21st to 8th at the end of the night when it's all said and done. Jonathan Cattell with a quiet but a solid top 10 in his return to RSR action. And Gabe Wood finishes 10th.
Yeah, 11th going to go to Nick Silver in the 24. Anthony DeBarro is going to finish 12th in the 99. John Abbott's going to finish 13th in the 10. 14th going to go to Chris Hurlow. 15th to Corey A. Wolf. 16th going to go to Mike Kelly. 17th, Sean Boundy. 18th going to go to Joseph LaPlaca. 19th to Shane Ewing. And 20th to Nathan Little.
Doug Roth finishes 21st after getting caught up here in a late race incident. Ross Cato was also part of that same wreck, finishes 22nd. Austin Coop finishes in the 23rd spot. 24th goes to Daniel Eberhardt. Kyle Barnes finishes 25th. Colson Bermudez, he who had, I think, the fastest car here tonight, but ran into rig problems midway through the race, finishes 52 laps down in 26th. 27th goes to Sean Casto in the 52. Lionel Callisto in the 97 finishes 28th. Corbin Hemstreet came home 29th. Randy Yoakum finishes 30th. And then Douglas Wyatt and Gio Bramonti round out the finishing order tonight in 31st and 32nd. So there's a look at your full field rundown from tonight. Now it's time to talk to our top three drivers, and we'll start it off with the man with all the lobster rolls and the man holding the big lobster now, Dylan Jones, back in victory lane for the first time in a little bit. It's been 4 months since we've seen you up on top of everything and with the trophy in hand. So to get back to victory lane, Dylan, how big is it for you and how good does it feel?
That feels great. This is a strange sight. I haven't been here for a while. I wish we could have got it at Sonoma. I really wanted to win there, but bad luck happened. But it feels really good to get a win here at New Hampshire, especially against some tough guys. I mean, I guess, honestly, the race should have been won by Colson. Colson had the bar none the strongest car out there. He was flying, but he had some issues and fell out, I guess. And we were able to take advantage of that and hold on at the end.
Talk about what went through your head when you got word that Colson had the system issues and dropped connection there for a few laps, because you had been trying to run him down for what was a very long green flag stint in the middle of this race, and didn't look like anybody had an answer for him all night. And then all of a sudden that happens and you're in control of this thing.
Yeah, running behind him, I definitely learned some stuff from him, what he was doing on that long run, because we were about even through the beginning portion of it, but towards the last tail end of the long run, he just took off because he was able to keep the rear tires on it real good. And when he legged out, you're excited, but you're kind of, it's mixed because he had the best car, and that could happen to you too at any time.
And then those last restarts, we saw David Comstock got a really, really good one there in that first restart there, and that sort of rash at the end of the race. So had that put you in a little bit of a nervous spot going into the final two? It didn't quite pan out the same way he would have liked it to at the end, but at least for that first one there, I would have imagined, if I were in your shoes, that there'd be a little bit of nerves just trying to make sure you close it out.
Honestly, after we went into turn one, I said, I just lost this race. I couldn't believe he got such a good jump there. It was a good job by him, but I drove it off in there one of the times and kind of slide jobbed him, and thanks him for, he could have probably gave me a little tap right there, but he didn't. And from there, it was just holding on.
So you come back, you get the win, you're happy to be here. And I guess now that you're back up here, you've been quick throughout a good chunk of these races since Atlanta, but now that you're back up on top, it's a decent time to start building momentum, I think, right before we hit the playoffs. So how do you take this and turn this into consistent top 10, top 5 runs through August and September leading up to the big show at Chicagoland?
Just perform at the tracks that I'm good at. I'm got an Indy coming up here. I love that track. I always run good there. So put in some practice and just keep the consistent finishes going and carry that momentum, hopefully.
One last bit before we let you go. I know there are a lot of people that make it happen for you, so we'll go ahead and give you the time to give your shout-outs and maybe nudge Andy Kessler and Tone to give you a few lobster rolls, I guess, too. But who makes it happen for you?
Everyone at Aegis, from Julio to Dave to Gio, Andy, especially Andrew. All the guys there on Aegis. Can't always forget everyone. But thanks, Andy, for the paint this week. It was an awesome paint, and we'll pick out a nice big lobster for him.
I've heard that they are pretty tasty. So congratulations to you and everybody at Aegis Motorsports. Enjoy a very fantastic Kessler prepared meal, I presume, and we'll see you next week and see if anybody tries to drink some milk with it to wash it down in Indianapolis.
10-4, thanks.
Dylan Jones gets the victory, and from Dylan Jones, we flip to the other side of that equation and the Aftermath Motorsports driver who almost had him beat. I was a little surprised even to hear how much Dylan Jones thought David Comstock had him beat on that, I think, third to last restart, but wasn't quite meant to be. Comstock ends up in second, and he is ready to talk to our own Cisco Scaramuza.
Yeah, I've caught up with Dave on pit road, and Dave started 7th, finished P2, but, well, it's not where he wanted to finish this race. Talk us through it. Those last 2 restarts, the first one went really well, and the second one, not so much.
Yeah, the restarts, they were hit or miss, just depending on if you were to time it right or not. I think there was the third to last restart we had. We timed it really good. The second to last one, I was sleeping. And this last one, I mean, I got the best I could, and it just still, no matter what, Dylan was that much better than any of us. Even though, despite we were talking after the race, we're all in agreement that if Colson didn't have his issues, he would have been the winner, and we would have just been fighting for second. So, but despite of what the troubles that he had, and we were able to come up with, second based off how we were running, we're happy with it. I didn't think that we had a winning car tonight, but just to come up with a top 5 with the second place and that, I'm very content.
Absolutely, and very different track lined up in 1 week's time at Indianapolis. So another flat-ish type track, but a lot bigger than the just over 1 mile track we have at Loudon. And Dave, is there anything you can take from this race that you'll be able to use at Indy next week to help you out there?
No, there's nothing you can take from this week, last week, into Indy. It's its own animal. These tracks we have during the summer, they're all their own animals, so you have to approach everything all different. And Indy's a special place that everybody wants to win, so I think it's going to be even more difficult to try to win that race next week.
Well, I will say there's going to be a little bit of discount for plaques, I believe, going on right now, and I know they help you get it done, but sponsors, shout-outs, who gets it done for you in the 42 team?
Yeah, definitely. With JT Plaques Plus being on board, use code David3 upon checkout when you're making your purchases this week up to Friday, and you get 25% off. Aftermath Motorsports will be on board with us, being a part of their team. Monster Energy, Gary Mercer Trucking, Brendan Mercer, their support every week. JD Laird, JDR Graphics, Hick and Jix, EJ Brakes, all the fans, everybody watching. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, well, that's David Comstock. He comes home second, and I'm going to pass the mic back over to Mr. James Pike, who I believe is caught up with the other Andy's Lobster Roll driver on the podium, and that being the driver who drives for the Lobster Roll man himself, David Washington.
Not quite the victory that he wanted, but David Washington still an Aegis Motorsports driver, so still will get to partake in all the lobster rolls he possibly wants alongside Dylan Jones and all the company there at the Aegis dinner table later on tonight. But Dave, let's talk first about the pit strategy, because you were the one who spearheaded the drive to get everybody down pit road to start with, kind of in the middle of that pit cycle too. It was a little bit different than what we expected, but just talk about the thinking on that and what made you come down and come get tires so early.
Well, basically, Andy he was pressing the button, and I heard we were in our window, and me not looking at my fuel, I'm thinking, okay, I'll wait another 4 or 5 laps and then I'll pit. Well, he was thinking out loud with pressing the button, so that was all my fault. I pitted too early. I was going to have to, come back in anyway. I was already settled into where I was running and where I was going to finish at. It was really no big deal. And then the caution happened. I don't know what happened there. I think it was Daniel got into the wall or whatever. But, yeah, I was really just content where I was running.
So more of a mistake, I guess, to begin with than anything else, but it set you up at a very interesting spot going forward through the race, because you, from that decision, kind of became the leader of the ring of drivers who tried to short pit and cut underneath Colson Bermudez and Dylan Jones to try and gain track position. So as you progress through the race, how did you work with that strategy and try and make it play out in the best way possible for you and the team?
Just really trying to... number one, try to throw everybody off, like usual with pit stops. I'm usually the first one that ever pits out of the group, and it kind of gets everybody else following. The strategy tonight was trying to keep the car in one piece for everybody. The track was tough. It was hard to pass. So really, everybody was on their own game plan tonight as far as strategy went. It really was no trying to help each other out or anything really tonight.
And then you come back to it, you get the yellow flag there late in those last 15 laps. What was that like from behind your position, just trying to gather it back up and make sure you're okay after all those restarts?
The biggest thing is telling my brain not to hit that right foot too hard on the bottom there and slide up and hit anybody. I didn't want to mess up anybody else's race. It was definitely hard driving by Mitch and Comstock. There was really no funny business on that last restart. We basically, you can normally count it down between teammates, and Jones just went out there and, took off, and Comstock, he got a good, start there, and it kind of held me up with the 96. So I really just had to be really super patient on the bottom not to cause any havoc between me and him. And that little burp of the gas there when the yellow came out helped me secure third.
You come away with third, a solid podium run tonight, and as always, we know there are a lot of people that make it happen for you. So go ahead and let us know, Dave, who needs thanking for getting you up here so high up the grid tonight?
Yeah, first and foremost, Julio for putting me on this team here and running with these guys at Aegis. Great group of guys. Mom watching, Andy up in the box every week. LSR for broadcasting this, and you guys for calling the race each and every week.
And I guess one last question before you go. Who's going to eat the most lobster rolls at the dinner table tonight?
Well, I think Joe's going to have to do that tonight. I'm going to suck up the third and be happy and try to steal some from him in the next race.
With a little bit of milk at Indianapolis, I figured. So, thanks for the time, Dave. Congrats on the finish, and we'll see you 1 week from tonight.
Thanks, guys.
And with that, we get ready to leave lobster roll land, tasty as those things might be. Oh, could go for a few of them, especially if you go up to the McDonald's up there. They'll sell them. If you go up towards Maine in particular, I know.
Out of all the lobster rolls, you go to McDonald's?
I know. I could go elsewhere, but that just, I think, proves the point as to how ubiquitous the lobster rolls are up in New England and how tasty they can be. But I think, since we're getting ready to head to your home track next week, or one of them, that you might be able to tell us a little bit about the milk that we find in Indianapolis.
Well, I mean, it's always driver's prerogative what kind they want. Well, it is driver's prerogative, but of course you have to go the whole milk route. But either way, corner 16th Street in Crawfordsville is coming up next week. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a track that has become home turf for me over the last couple of years here at school, and is definitely one of the premier racing facilities on earth. And we get to go out there and watch some stock cars, which, well, it's kind of been split decision of what people think about stock cars at Indianapolis, but either way, at least on the iRacing service, and as far as that's concerned, always a good time for these guys.
And I can guarantee you we will not have restrictor plates on any of our stock cars on Monday, which I think will probably help a little bit. Somehow believe somebody at NASCAR forgot about how that race played out in 2000 here at New Hampshire, and we brought the experiment back in the real world. But in the sim world, it's us at Indianapolis. LSRTV will bring you live flag-to-flag coverage of the RealSimRacing.com Full Throttle Cup Series presented by Gary Mercer Trucking, live 1 week from tonight at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and an adventure I think we're going to be in for, nothing short of that. And if you hear us just go over the next week sometime while he's off sim, don't be all that worried. He's just giving off a whole Butler war cry because he's all in an Indianapolis spirit. So, for Cisco Scaramouche, a big credit to him tonight for pulling double duty, being able to talk with us here on the broadcast and produce all the shots that you've seen tonight. Not easy to do, but certainly can do it, and it's pretty good at doing it himself. For him, for Laura Lawson and Evan Pasoko at LSRTV, along with DJ Lyon, for John Abbott, Doug Atkinson, and everybody at Real Sim Racing, I am James Pike, saying thank you for watching tonight's broadcast here from New Hampshire, and we will see you from the crossroads of America 1 week from tonight. Take care.